Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this episode I'm joined by Pearse Kelly, Head of Knowledge Transfer in Teagasc, to discuss the impact of Covid-19. With the current Covid-19, we will be bringing you the Beef Edge weekly. Also, we will be recording this episode and following episodes remotely to encourage social distancing. I first asked Pearse, how has this impacted Teagasc Advisory Services?
The biggest impact I suppose it has is that we've closed all of our offices, and we have a lot of staff now that are working from home. And at this time of the year, the biggest impact that's going to have on clients is that normally we'd obviously have a huge amount of clients that are coming in doing a basic payment scheme, BPS scheme, filling out the forms with the advisor, and that's usually done in the office in consultation with the advisor, and then the advisor completes it online for the client and that. So we've had to obviously change the way we're doing that, and we're doing all of those really on the phone with the advisor. So the advisor, there's appointments being made with clients, so we are still obviously doing them for clients, but we're doing them over the phone. And so what we're asking clients to do, I suppose, in preparation, is that if you know you're going to be having a conversation with your advisor later this week at a set time, because there are still appointments being made, but it's just over the phone. But if you know later on in the week that you're having an appointment over the phone, is that everyone would have been sent out their land passers and maps in the post from the department. So just check over those, I suppose, first, read in preparation for that, to make sure that everything is in order. And
it's still going for the current deadline of the 15th of May.
It is. There is an allowance there, it seems, at EU level, that if member states want to change to the 15th of June, they can. But to date, the department hasn't looked for that. And the big reason we're told that the department don't really want to move that date out past the 15th of May is that they want to get the vast majority of people paid in October. And if they, as they did last year, and if they move the closing date out to the 15th of June, it could have an impact on the date that people are paid later in the year. And so they don't really want to do that. So for the moment, what we're being told from the Department of Agriculture is that they're going to leave the deadline as the 15th of May.
And there has been an extension to the derogation deadline to the 24th of April. In relation to the farmers applying for derogation, how are advisors completing forms for clients?
Yeah, it's over the phone, Catherine. Yeah, it's all being done. So people are putting together records and things like that, and getting them into advisors and posting them in and that. But for the most part, it's being done over the phone.
Okay. And in order to reduce social contact and the spread of the virus, what changes have Teagasc made as a result?
Yeah, so we're closed now. Listen, if someone really does want to there's certain cases where people have to come in and meet an advisor, and we can do that, and we have the offices set up where we have where there's going to be social distancing between the advisor and the client. There's a perspex sheeting set up in certain offices. There won't be a huge amount of this, so we have an office dedicated for that, where there's two screens, where the advisor looks at one screen, the client looks at the other screen. There's a distance kept between them, and there's a perspex sheet, as I said, from them. The other thing, I suppose, the big thing is that, again, we'd have a lot of farmer discussion group meetings taking place on farm at this time of the year. We have over 5,000 clients on beef discussion groups alone. So what we are doing with those discussion groups is they're obviously all being cancelled. We can't obviously have those meetings. So what we're doing is we're replacing those with 1 hour phone meetings. So those are going to start this week and into next week. People probably haven't had them yet, as of yet, but they can expect a call from their advisor or a text from their advisor explaining how they're going to work, and that'll be a half hour to 1 hour meeting where we'll be having a call with 15 or 20 clients. Those who wish to come on the call can come on it, and they can talk, they can ask questions, and they can have a discussion with the advisor. It'll be different, obviously, than a face-to-face meeting, but those are going to be the first of them that will be taking place. And the department has launched a new beep scheme, so there's a lot of questions coming in from clients on that around the new beep scheme, and for suckler cows and calves. So that'll be the first, for the most part, that'll be the first conference call, discussion group call on the phone that we have with clients. Will be on that in the next week or so.
In addition to the group calls, how is Teagasc planning to transfer information and advice to farmers?
Okay, so all visits by advisors to clients, individual visits are not taking place either. So, but if a client does request a visit, we can accommodate that, but really it's only for urgent issues. So if is a really urgent issue, an advisor by appointment can call out and meet, or can meet that advisor, meet that client in the office. Other than that, then it's really going to be through digital format is where we're going to be communicating with clients through online, through many of our digital platforms. We have our website, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, by post. We'll also have Today's Farm coming out on a bi-monthly, and then we have our monthly newsletters as well. So that really, that's for the most part is the way it's going to be communicating with people. But this is really very new for us too. You know, we've had emergencies in the past. I suppose the one that I remember most back a long number of years ago is the foot and mouth one, but you know, that was more around animals and we were very much confined to offices as well and not having group meetings, but we'd still meet a lot of people and call out to them, but we weren't having group meetings. But this is very different. So we're learning as this goes. We're at the very early days of it as well. So, you know, over the next coming days and weeks, we're going to see how things that work well and things that maybe don't work so well, we'll adjust them and format them to make them work better.
It is a very worrying time. What advice have you for farmers that are currently self-isolating, that are at their busiest time of the year, calving and lambing at the moment?
Yeah, this is a really busy time on beef and sheep farms and dairy farms throughout the country. So I suppose the one piece of advice we're saying to people at the moment is, yeah, listen, a lot of farmers are used to working on their own, and that's fine. And they might say, you know, self-isolation, sure, that's not new. I'm one end of the week to the other end of the week. I don't meet anyone anyway. And while I'm on the farm, that's fine. I suppose what we're asking people to do really is that the self-isolation is one thing, but we really don't know over the coming weeks, you know, how many more people are going to be affected by COVID-19 itself and become sick, even mildly sick, or maybe more seriously sick. And I suppose what we're asking people to do is maybe think about, well, if I became sick in the morning, so if I found out in the morning that I had contacted the COVID-19 and I was going to be ill for the next while, who then would step into my boots? Who then would lamb those ewes, calve those cows, feed cattle, move stock, do things like that? Is it another family member who's maybe living somewhere else outside of the family home that I'm living in? Is it a relation? Is it a neighbour? Is it a friend? What's my contingency plan if I become sick? And have I thought about that? And maybe I said it to that person that, listen, if I become sick, I'll be looking for you to step in and take over the reins for me for a little while until I recover, or can I do that for someone else as well? Can I be that person for someone else? And it's a really busy time of the year for people. So, you know, what you don't want is a situation where if you became ill, having to deal with that as well as be ill. So have a think about it now. What is your plan? Have a plan A, have a plan B, because what you don't want is that you'd have a plan in that, you know, you've nominated someone else and maybe they're not in a position to help you. What's plan B outside of plan A?
Yeah, it's a very important point. And over the coming weeks, while farmers are restricting access to their farms, what hygiene guidelines or protocols can they implement, for example, for deliveries, etc.?
Yeah, that's another important one, Catherine. Exactly. You know, there's going to be a lot of deliveries on farms, and you know, there's still meal being delivered. There's a lot of fertilizer being delivered at the moment. People are getting different deliveries. I know a lot of the co-ops and a lot of the stores have implemented policies whereby, you know, you ring in and you ring ahead, and the goods are left out for you, or you go up and you collect them in the yard and that. Similarly, though, where people are bringing in people on the farm, where deliveries are being delivered to the farm, you know, the common practice now is if someone arrived, you go over and you'd have a chat to them and talk away to them. We can't do that now. And the lorry drivers who are delivering things to farms, they won't want that either. They're not looking to have a conversation with people as they drive into numerous different yards. So, you know, if you can, you know, when you're ordering the fertilizer or meal or whatever it is that you're ordering, or fencing posts or whatever, you know, give instructions about where they're should be left in the yard. So so that whatever lorry driver arrives, they know exactly where they leave them. They can come in, they can drop them off, and then they can leave the docket with them, or where you want them to leave the docket, or you can get it at another date, and then they can head on about their business. So, we have to do things differently that way. Again, we shouldn't be visiting farms, other farms if we don't need to visit them. If we have other work people in, not sharing tools, different things like that. Electrician, for argument's sake, has to come in and do something, explain what needs to be done, let them come in, let them do it, and let them go. You shouldn't by right need to be there in their presence while they're doing that, to limit social contact.
There's some key points there that can be implemented in some simple steps. There are many farmers that rely on off-farm income. With the loss of jobs to date and probably more expected, what advice have you for farmers that find themselves in these circumstances?
Yeah, there's a lot of, especially in the Drystock side, there's a lot of people who are working off farm and who are dependent on an income off farm, both for their own living, but also to make repayments and that on things that are needed for the farm, whether it's lease payments or land repayments or just general bills. So with people that are in a financial position now that they didn't expect us to find themselves in. A month ago, nobody would have expected to find themselves in a position now where maybe they no longer have that employment, even if it is only for a short period. It is going to put stress on finance, and like any financial crisis that happens on a farm for whatever reason, the same advice applies. Act sooner rather than later. So if that means talking to merchants that you normally owe, that you maybe pay off at this time of the year after a winter before you start buying fertilizer and that, have a chat to them now, explain the situation that, you are going to pay your bill, but you're just going to need a little bit more time. If it's with banks, that there's repayments, all of the banks are saying they're very sympathetic towards people who find themselves in that position. And the sooner you talk to either a bank or a merchant or someone that you owe credit to, the better. And from your own peace of mind too, to say, listen, I spoke to that person, they know the position I'm in, they know that obviously it's going to be a little bit longer before I pay that bill or pay that repayment, and that I've made that arrangement and agreed that arrangement, and it means you can go on then about your business and do what's important in terms of your own health and keeping your own farm running.
What are the key things that farmers need to be aware of now at the moment that's happening on the farm?
Yeah, that is the other side of it, Catherine, that, the coronavirus is one thing, but these are very busy times, as you say, on farms. There's a lot happening. There's cows calving, ewes lambing, fertilizer. We've dry week now. I know in the part of the country I'm in the east of the country, but throughout the country now things are starting to dry up. Finally, we're starting to see an opportunity to get out, get a bit of fertilizer spread, get cattle turned out. All those things need to happen, and we need to bear that in mind, that at the moment there's no significant crisis within farming because of COVID, in terms of for the moment the marts are operating, factories are still processing cattle, things are still moving, so people need to bear that in mind, that the jobs need to be done, still need to be focused on. And the big one really over the next week or two is getting fertilizer spread if it hasn't already been spread, and getting cattle out to grass, because those are the things that are going to have the biggest impact on the bottom line over the coming months and year.
And finally, Pearse, as children are off from school at the moment, and I expect some are helping out on the farm, what are the key things that farmers need to be aware of in relation to health and safety?
Yeah, this is really important. There's we know throughout the country that there's kids now home from school. They're on farms, maybe even on farms maybe where they wouldn't normally have, in that there would have been grandparents up the road and that minding them, but with obviously grandparents not in a position to do that now, those children now are on the farm. And listen, that can be great in one way, in terms of people spending more time with their children, and if they can bring them out around the farm and that for a short break, get away from the house and get away from a little bit of this cabin fever, that's great. But really what we're asking people and we're imploring people is, bear in mind that if they are bringing children out, and maybe some children that aren't that used to being out around the farm, because I said they're normally somewhere else being minded in that, just bear in mind that farms are really dangerous places. Farmers don't need me to tell them that, but it's always worth reminding them they're really dangerous places. There's a lot of machinery going on. There's slurry being spread. There's fertilizer being spread. There's cattle being let out. Just stand back and think before you do it. Is this safe to do this? Going for a walk, up the field, having a look at cattle and that in your presence and that. All those things are fine, but doing jobs around the farm when the kids are in your presence, that really is a no-no. That's not really an option. And I know people are under pressure maybe to mind children and that, but stand back and think about the bigger picture. Farms aren't, working farms when there's actual work being done aren't a place to have children. All great to have them there on when there's nothing happening and for a short break from the house and that. But other than that, keep kids out of the yard.
I think it's fair to say that this is the time when farmers need to support each other now more than ever. Thank you very much, Pearse, for joining me on the show. That's all for this episode, and my thanks to Pearse Kelly for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.